Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff. It's getting hot in here.
Say one other thing. President Harris said today in her post, in her speech, she said that President Trump was going to turn the U.S. military against the American public and use the public to promote his agenda. How many of you think that is true? Well, what's interesting to me is that the Biden-Harris administration has done something 2 weeks ago that has never been done in American history, which is to send exactly lethal force, to send a directive to the Pentagon, changing the law to make it legal for the U.S. military to use lethal force against American citizens on American soil. I'm not making this up. Any of you can look it up. This is a Democratic initiative. This did not come during the Trump administration. This did not come from Donald Trump. It came from the Democratic Party. And that's why I left the Democratic Party.
When I heard that the other day, I just about lost my mind. I'm like, there's no way that's true. That somebody has to be making some AI something or other. So I looked it up.
What was once unthinkable is now written, approved, and ready to be executed. This is not preparation for defense. This is preparation for domination. Be warned, when the state moves in silence, it's because it expects resistance. Martial law was always the goal.
Yeah, so here's the directive. You can read it yourself if you want to, but the main thing that everyone's, upset about, that they're, making a big deal about is this paragraph here. The Secretary of Defense can approve, quote, assistance in responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. Yes, that is in this directive that I have listed here. It does say that.
So the date on that was September 27th of this year, 2024. And I don't know how new that is because in my understanding, if there was martial law, that's what would happen anyway. The military would be in charge and they would take whatever force necessary in specific situations, right? But it's interesting that it's dated more recently as though maybe it was updated for some reason, like, I don't know, the election tomorrow. Maybe they're expecting people to get crazy. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by today. To my new viewers, welcome. Those of you that have been here for a while, welcome back. If you wouldn't mind hitting that like button for me, it'll really help out the channel. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And then come on back. I'm making a new episode every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
The drama with the major news networks right now, it looks like all of them are trying to regain some viewers before Tuesday's election. CNN just put out an entire segment showing the voters in Michigan and in Pennsylvania how Kamala Harris is putting out two different messages to them about war. You see, in Michigan, she's pandering to all of the Muslim Americans by telling them, we want this war to end, we don't want anyone else to get hurt or to get injured. But then yet you turn around and in Pennsylvania, she is out there saying we are going to support Israel's right to protect themselves against Hamas. And we are going to do so in whatever way possible. And of all news networks, CNN decided to put this out.
I had to find that news report, so check it out.
Tonight, mixed messages. A K-file investigation this hour finds Kamala Harris is targeting crucial battleground voters with vastly different messages on Gaza and Israel. This ad is running in Michigan, which has the largest Arab population in America.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
All right, well, it's a very different story for an ad in Pennsylvania targeting Jewish voters.
Let me be clear. I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7.
Different message. Andrew Kaczynski is out front now. So, Andrew, those obviously do sound starkly different, to say the least. Tell me more about what you found.
Yeah, that's right. On the issue of Israel here, you have two entirely different constituencies, and they are getting two entirely different messages. There are often times these constituencies have very opposing views on this. If you are a Jewish person in Pennsylvania, you saw that ad that you're getting. You are getting that ad that talks about how strong she is in Israel. If you're a Muslim voter in Michigan, you are getting that ad on Facebook that's talking about how she won't be silent on the issue of Gaza. Now, what's really interesting here is that ad that we just played, the one that's going to Jewish voters in Pennsylvania. Now, it sort of sounds like those two clips of her talking about Israel are together, but they actually cut part of it out. Take a listen to what they cut.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
And you've seen too that they cut out that portion of the ad where they talked about Gaza from her DNC speech. Those two parts were together. They sliced them. They cut that part out.
Well, it certainly is surprising that CNN of all channels put that out, because heaven forbid they say anything negative about the Democratic candidate, right? But what is it that she's trying to do? Nobody really knows what her plans are. All she knows right now is pander to the people, tell the people what they want to hear, because when she gets into office, she can do whatever she wants. It doesn't matter what she promised, because once she's there, she's there. You know, if she gets there, and we'll know tomorrow.
Age of lab-grown meat has arrived in this country. The Agriculture Department just approved 2 California companies to sell chicken grown in steel tanks using cells that come from an animal egg or a special bank of stored cells. The cell-cultivated chicken will first be available at a restaurant in San Francisco and another one in Washington, D.C., owned by famed chef Jose Andres, before hitting stores.
That chicken is actually the chicken that we buy in the stores now. That's what it looks like, all stringy and funny. And what's crazy is my husband insisted that we buy the organic stuff from Costco, which is like 3 times as much per pound. And I opened up a package just the other day, and it's still that stringy, gross stuff. That fake chicken going into restaurants, I mean, that's disgusting just because of what it is. It's unnatural, but that's the stuff that we eat now.
This is nuclear physicist Dr. John Mullen. He discovered how to generate clean and free energy as opposed to oil. Days after this discovery, he died of arsenic poisoning. Dr. Don Wiley. He found the cure for HIV/AIDS. He mysteriously disappeared and later was found deceased. Dr. Mark A. Smith. He found a treatment for Alzheimer's. He passed away in a freak accident. This is Frank Suarez. He apparently found the cure for cancer. He mysteriously took his own life a couple of days later. I don't know, folks. This is suspicious, blowing my mind when I found out about it.
We've seen so many cases like this where people make these incredible discoveries that can make lives better and cheaper. And therein lies the problem. It's cheaper, which means, you know I'm going to say it, it's taken too many monies out of those fat cats' pockets.
The boomers had 13% interest rates in the 80s. We should be grateful that our interest rate's only 7.5%. Well, we got to run the numbers, because in 1980, the median household income was $22,000. The median house price was only $47,000. The house price was just double the salary. And if you put down a 20% down payment and closing costs, it was only $11,000, which is half the yearly salary. So yes, you had a 13% interest rate, but because the house price was so small, your monthly payment with property taxes and homeowner insurance was only $485 a month, which is only 26% of your gross income. But fast forward to today in 2024, the median household income is $85,000, but the median house price is $415,000. It is 5x the salary. And a 20% down payment and closing cost is $100,000, which is more than our actual yearly salary. Now, our interest rate is only 7.5%, but the monthly payment is still $3,000. Someone making 85 grand cannot even qualify for this. If they were somehow able to, it would take 40% of their gross income, which would make them house poor.
One thing that he didn't mention is that you don't start at $85,000. That's the median income. People start at the bottom of the barrel and work their way up, and it takes years to get to that point in some cases. And that's why a lot of people are living with their parents into their 30s so they can be able to do that. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity. They're out on their own, they're renting an apartment, you got to have roommates, and it's very, very difficult to save up that money to make any kind of down payment on a house.
9/11 was a false flag.
For the first 10 years, I did not think anything other than the official narrative. Then a close-up video of building number 7 coming down. And it's obvious to me that building 7 was a controlled demolition. The outer skeleton of the buildings was like a fishnet. And you had these inner core columns, which was substantial, thick steel beams to withstand 4 or 5 times what the loads were. The engineers always over-design a building. No steel frame building has ever collapsed. The Twin Towers collapsed from the top down. That's a progressive collapse, floor by floor by floor. But if you look at the videos of building 7 collapsing, it collapses uniformly. It's collapsing from the bottom. The building stays intact all the way to the bottom of the ground. I came across an analogy of the Twin Towers. You could visualize cast iron stoves stacked, one on top of each other. The stoves up at the top, yes, there's fire and they've been damaged, but the stoves on the bottom, they haven't been damaged. So the structure underneath all of that is intact. So it's impossible for a building to collapse near free fall speed and increase. Examine the dust and they found thermitic material, explosive incendiary, which was in the dust samples.
I'm really not sure where my brain sits on the whole 9/11 issue. I don't want to be a skeptic because I feel guilt for the individuals that have lost their lives in that particular situation. And sometimes I feel like that's how they want you to feel, to make you not be a skeptic. But at the same time, these things keep popping up. Terry keeps sending them to me. I love you, Terry. Thank you so much. And they just make my brain so confused.
Is free speech like absolutely, totally absolute? Because I could say the left can use your ideology against you, for instance, and say that it's their free speech to say that there's so many different genders.
I don't want to take away their right to say whatever they want. They can say that. The issue is when they try to get you to affirm it, right? So they can affirm whatever they want to affirm and say whatever they want to say. That the proper response to that is for us to rebut that, to refute that. They're trying to take away our right to even refute it. They're trying to force you to actually affirm what they're saying, and that you'll have no choice but to affirm it. And what I'm arguing is not that they shouldn't have a right to say or believe what they want and articulate it. I'm saying we should have a right to reject it and rebut it and refute it and even ridicule it if we want to. So it's really both sides should be free to speak their minds and say what they believe and defend their beliefs.
Honestly, this whole 16 million different genders and identities thing is confusing as hell to me. If somebody wants to identify as an attack helicopter one day, fine. They're an attack helicopter. That's your right. I have the right to disagree, but I should not be punished for disagreeing with that, just like the attack helicopter isn't going to be punished for not agreeing that we are binary.
Most of us that have conditions like type 2 diabetes or thyroid or other issues, that we think that these are conditions for life. That's not true. If your pancreas was removed, you would need to be dependent on insulin. But the industry wants to get you dependent on insulin. Do you know that diabetes is a $110 billion annual industry? Big Pharma makes $110 billion a year on diabetes. How many of you think they want to shut that down? Oh, one person does? Okay, well, I would take issue with that. They don't want to shut that down. In fact, if you asked me, if you said, Gary, nobody would say this. This is a hypothetical. But if you said, Gary, write me a diet that would guarantee I get diabetes, I would go right to the American Diabetic Association website. I would download their dietary guidelines and I would send them to you. Check it out. I'm not making this up. If you go there, you'll see, you know what they recommend for a type 2 diabetic first thing in the morning for breakfast? Bowl of oatmeal, glass of orange juice with natural honey, crushed brown sugar. If you know anything about diet, how much fat, how much protein is in that? 0. That is all high glycemic carbohydrates. So if you follow that diet, what happens? Your blood sugar spikes. If your blood sugar spikes, what do you need? Insulin. It's an insulin dependency diet. It's perfect. Break into your house Friday night, come back Saturday morning, sell you a security system. It's a perfect unit, right?
That is disgustingly true. I'd witnessed it with my mom for decades, and in a past life, I was the medical liaison for an adult residential facility, and one of our clients had type 2 diabetes. I took her to this class provided by her medical insurance, and they gave her this little pamphlet that had the food pyramid, and it had all the carbs in it. It even had examples of food that you can eat, and it was all carbs. And that information had to be logged in our company records, and we had to follow that. And I'd be damned if in 6 months she wasn't given more metformin to take because her sugars were out of control.
If the rules are that joke memes about voting that could mislead people are crimes, then Jimmy Kimmel should absolutely 100% be investigated. I am as serious as a heart attack. They want to rewrite the rules. Let him play by them. Watch this.
If you can vote early, vote early. If you can't vote early, vote on time. If you want to vote for Trump, vote late, vote very late. Do your voting on Thursday or maybe Friday. This will be my third time voting against Donald Trump.
New rules, kids, right? They told us them's the rules. I saw Matt Walsh tweet it, and Matt is 100% correct. Jimmy Kimmel, folks in the chat, yes or no? Should Kimmel be under investigation for this?
Absolutely. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Check out this story.
This was an entire election cycle later.
That was the weird part. But I knew that we had just had a transition of presidents. So
7 days after Biden gets inaugurated, you get arrested for a tweet
4 years earlier. Yeah.
What was your reaction?
You know, it's crazy. I was a little bit surprised, but I wouldn't put anything past, what they can do.
I remember reading that and thinking, clearly I'm missing something. You probably murdered somebody, or put strychnine in the water supply or something. It can't really be that you just tweeted something the previous election cycle. And there were 10 FBI agents?
There were 4 FBI agents, and then they had some local cops and that kind of thing.
But 10 law enforcement officers?
Yeah.
Were you waving a gun and screaming, "You'll never take me alive"?
Not quite.
So you're just like some random guy?
Yeah. It was shocked. I had roommates at the time. They were in disbelief. They couldn't believe it.
They must have assumed you were like a drug kingpin or something.
Yeah, pretty much. They thought I had some kind of secret that I was hiding or something. They were really shocked when they found out what it was.
Yeah, I was too. And it turned out, by the way, fast forward to your trial, it turns out your crime was exactly what you said it was, posting a tweet. So
now I totally understand the concept of a joke, and what Jimmy Kimmel said was funny. This guy, what he did was he did something funny as well. Back in 2016, when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump, he posted a meme on Twitter that said that you could vote for Hillary Clinton by text. It was a meme. It was a joke. It was intended to be funny, just like what Jimmy Kimmel said was intended to be funny. But this guy was arrested like 4 years later for election interference. So if this guy is going to get arrested, shouldn't they follow that letter of the law in all aspects of it?
You cannot tell me that the Democrats are not blackmailing these celebrities. You cannot tell me that, because Cardi B literally said out of her own mouth not that long ago that she's not going to be endorsing anybody this year. She says she doesn't care who calls her, how much money they try to give her, that she wasn't going to endorse anybody, and here she is. So you can't tell me that. I mean, Kamala Harris might as well phone up P. Diddy and have him endorse her from his jail cell at this point. Who's next?
Yeah, if you didn't see it, Cardi B actually did come out and endorse Kamala Harris over the weekend. And I don't think she helped her out very much. Here's a little piece of what she said.
Recognize that this country is at risk, that the economy needs to get stronger, that the cost of food and the cost of living is too high. Damn, it's even high for me.
Oh, don't forget, J-Lo also showed up this weekend.
I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional, but...
Did you though? Did you promise yourself that? Because I get the sense that if I got my hands on the piece of paper with your speech written on it, I would be able to read the words, "I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional, but..." Almost as if, you planned that the whole time. In fact, I wouldn't be at all surprised if above that line in parentheses it said, "Now tear up and pretend to be emotional." And to be clear, this video is not an attempt to encourage you to vote for one candidate over another candidate or not vote at all, but rather an observation. When the election gets reduced to Hulk Hogan versus J-Lo making clumsy attempts at emotional manipulation in one direction or the other, you should start to think what that says about the people in power and what they think about you.
Yeah, she was actually reading the teleprompter the entire time. You can see her eyes going back and forth. And I want to show you something that references what that other lady said right before the Cardi B clip. Just check it out. While that does look a little suspicious, I find it absolutely ridiculous that politicians bring in celebrities. They actually pay the celebrities to come out and endorse them. And I think it's ridiculous because it's demeaning, because they think, oh, if this celebrity's here, I can get those stupid people to vote for me. That's what they're doing. They're calling you stupid. Both of them, both of the candidates, by bringing in celebrities to swing your vote. It makes me feel like they think we're stupid. Which they do.
What do you think of Vice President Harris as our potential next president?
Well, she's already been president.
What do you
Explain.
Explain yourself.
Explain. So you don't know this?
Please.
You can fact check me. November 19th, 2021. Vice President Harris became sitting president of the United States of America for 1 hour and 25 minutes.
Really?
While Joe Biden underwent a colonoscopy.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
That did happen.
85 minutes.
That's right.
Yes, while Uncle Joe was getting butt surgery.
That did happen.
Kamala Auntie was in the Oval Office.
She was
with
in
her
the Oval.
fingers all over the nuclear code. And nobody, Sarah, nobody in the media talked about this.
You're right. We definitely
Nobody
talked
talked about this.
They don't. You are right. She's already been president, and she did a good job during those 80 minutes.
Well, there you go. She was already president for a little while.
There's a fight brewing in the National Archives over the telling of American history. For the past year, the country's top archivist and her team have been removing some references to negative parts of American history from exhibits planned to open in 2025. Colleen Shogan and her team have raised concerns that the planned exhibits might anger Republican lawmakers and a potential Trump administration. I'm an investigative reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and my colleague and I spoke to nearly a dozen current and former archives employees, and we reviewed documents and contemporaneous notes for this story. Here are some of the changes that head archivist Colleen Shogan and her team ordered to these exhibits. They removed prominent references to events like the World War II Japanese-American incarceration camps because they were too negative and controversial. And they requested to swap a photo of Martin Luther King Jr. marching for civil rights for former President Nixon greeting Elvis. They also removed several documents related to the U.S. government's displacement of Native American tribes from a planned exhibit about westward expansion. Shogun asked one staffer, "Why is it so much about Indians?" Longtime employees at the National Archives have said her efforts amounted to censorship, and at least a half dozen senior employees have stepped down in recent months. When we asked for comment, the National Archives told us that it's committed to operating without ideology or partisanship.
So it is happening, erasing our history just a little bit at a time, because in a couple generations, they won't know that that was there, because it'll stop being taught in school, it'll stop being shown in all of these public archives, and then it just didn't happen.
The internet is buzzing after people shared videos of their Eminem Halloween candy packets looking a little light.
There's one. There's one.
A broken M&M and 2 M&Ms in it.
And people jumped in the comments real quick with a similar take. One user said, 2 of my packets only had 1 each. I'm not impressed when I'm paying so much for the box. Not cool. And this user said, you are the 3rd person I've seen make a video like this. Meanwhile, this person gave a different take. It's an accident. I bought candy and all the peanut M&Ms are fine. Don't make it into a conspiracy. Well, our team here at the BG Show contacted Eminem to get to the bottom of this. In an email statement, a spokesperson said, our products are sold by weight, and we are committed to ensuring they meet or exceed our quality quality standards. She went on to say, in this instance, it appears a packaging error occurred despite our rigorous quality control processes. We take this matter very seriously, and we'll share the insights with our quality team to prevent future occurrences. So BG Squad, what are your thoughts on the candy packaging? Let us know in the comments.
How ridiculously convenient that that just happened to occur at the time of year when people spend millions of dollars on candy.
In the US, the average egg in your refrigerator is 45 to 60 days old. The USDA doesn't care if you have basically up to 100-day-old eggs for sale, but they do mandate the farms. So the farms, from the day the egg is laid, they have 30 days to give it to a distributor. The distributor then has 30 days to get it to a grocer or to sell it.
I wonder if that's why in the United States, our eggs are kept in the refrigerator, because in other countries, they don't do that.
This is probably going to be the most simplest one for you to answer, but what if you're wrong?
Well, what if I'm wrong? Anybody could be wrong. We could all be wrong about the flying spaghetti monster and the pink unicorn and the flying teapot. You happen to have been brought up in the Christian faith. You know what it's like not to believe in a particular faith because you're not a Muslim. You're not a Hindu. Why aren't you a Hindu? Because you happen to have been brought up in America, not in India. If you'd been brought up in India, you'd be a Hindu. If you were brought up in Denmark in the time of the Vikings, you'd be believing in Wotan and Thor. If you were brought up in classical Greece, you'd be believing in Zeus. If you were brought up in Central Africa, you'd be believing in the great juju up the mountain. There's no particular reason to pick on the Judeo-Christian God in which, by the sheerest accident, you happen to have been brought up, and ask me the question, what if I'm wrong? What if you're wrong about the great juju at the bottom of the sea?
That reminds me of something that George Carlin once said. Let's say, for example, there are 3,000 different variations of God. I believe in 0, and any other particular religion believes in 1. That means that they do not believe in 2,999 others. They think that those others are wrong. So they literally only believe in one less God than I do. So what makes either of us wrong? Now, I don't believe that any particular religion is wrong. I think if you have a faith and you're a good person, I don't care what you believe in, as long as you're a good person, because that's what matters the most. On that note, I'm calling it for today. Tomorrow is election day, so hopefully on Wednesday, I will be back with those results, even though everybody will already know them. And as usual, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Come on back in a couple of days. We're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things, and it's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day. Okay, that's about as much of this as I can handle. Hot in there. Whew. So that chicken